What is up, Rad Potential YouTube, and welcome to today's video. I'm Mr. Rad, and we're going to be building a crazy 5-into-1 header for this hybrid RX8 behind me. What makes this car a hybrid is that we are using RX7 engine parts inside of our RX8 engine. So it is a hybrid RX7, RX8, call it a RX 7.5 or an 8.7, whatever you want to call it. But effectively, we've added RX7 housings to our rotary engine, which allows us to have 5 exhaust ports. So the stock Renesis has 3 on the outside, an RX7 has 2 on the inside. We've combined them. Now we've got 5. What this is going to do for us, ideally, is increase the exhaust flow of the engine. We're going to be able to get more gas out. I've done a Bridgeport on this engine as well, so we should be able to get more air in. And our goal is to make over 200 horsepower with this car. If you followed along with the story of this car from the beginning, we took this to the dyno right whenever I bought it. Bone stock, completely untouched, just straight off of getting it running. And it made a whopping 86.5 horsepower. So literally less horsepower and torque than what we torqued the wheels to on this car. We threw every single set of bolt-ons at this car. So catback, catless mid-pipe, tune, coils, intake, and literally at $100 per 1 horsepower, so you do the math here, we ended at 130.5 horsepower. So we picked up 44 horsepower. Literally each horsepower cost us $100. So we're going to try to keep that trend going. We're going to go from 130 to ideally over 200, and we've spent a good bit. This car has always been about how many pairs of RX8 seats do we have invested into it. So I bought it for 1 pair of seats. We obviously put another 10 pair of seats into it, doing all those modifications, catback, everything I just listed. And now we have built this hybrid engine, which is approximately, another 8 to 10 pair of RX8 seats invested. So we've got a good bit of, if we stick to our $100 per horsepower, then we're going to be approximately at 170 horsepower-ish after this is all said and done. This is the Renesis engine I just took out of that yellow RX8. We made 130.5 horsepower out of this deal, which is pretty pitiful. But I wanted to show you what a stock Renesis exhaust and engine mount looks like, because building this header, we're changing all of this. This is your stock RX8 exhaust manifold. It's a giant, heavy, cast log manifold. It's been shown that you can pick up some decent power, and I say decent, all y'all Turbo LS guys, like decent power is like 700. If you put a header on your RX8, you might pick up 5 or 10 horsepower, but this goes on here like that. Very simple, very logarithmic. However, what is not simple about the RX8 Renesis setup is the engine mount. So you saw on the previous video, taking the engine out of here is kind of cumbersome, and that is because this engine mount goes over the header just like that. So where this provides an issue for me is now I have to get 5 tubes through here and still somehow hold the engine up. So what my goal is we're going to start with just building the header, and then I'll come back and try to figure out some way to hold the engine. It's not like this thing is making 1,000 horsepower. It's literally going to make less than 100 foot-pounds of torque, so I could probably get away with like a pretty light-duty engine mount on this side, and nothing, this thing's not really going to give us any fits. So let's take a look up under the bonnet of the RX8. There you can see all 5 exhaust ports chilling. You can see where the engine mount would have gone, right there on the subframe, and now you can see what the hybrid header flange is going to look like on the engine. So we're going to collect the front 2 together, the rear 2 together, and I'm going to bring the center one just down and around and tee it in somewhere random, because I don't know, or at least I want to test how much of an effect that center port has. I'm targeting about an 18-inch runner length on the car, and then the collector and everything will kind of happen back here by the transmission. So it'll be 2-into-1, 18 inches, 2-into-1, 18 inches. Figure out how to somehow balance from the 2-to-1 collector to the 1 to then back to 2-to-1 to then science and stuff. Basically what we're going to be looking at is 2-to-1 from the rear rotor 2-to-1 from the front rotor, 2-to-1 from all the rotors, and then there's going to be a small tube that comes out of the center one that's going to go somewhere in this whole system somehow. So let's get to tubesing.
Tubes.
So I had all the runners done. I took the header off, and taking the header off required me to literally hoist the engine up, take the engine mount off on the driver's side, slide the engine over to get the header out. So it was a little bit too complex, you know, as 5 tubes in one area can be. So I'm gonna reconfigure rotor number 1's runners, which are over here. Like I said, I'm not a super fabricator guy that works with TIG welding, stainless steel schedule, 304 stainless, whatever all that stuff is together. I haven't spent the time to pay my tuition to learn how to do all that, albeit I can build stuff pretty well. So this is just rough. This is testing here. We're gonna test an equal length 5-tube runner manifold thing that we're gonna build. So let's get this reconfigured because I need to shorten these. They were sitting too far passenger, which was preventing the header from sliding off. So you can see there I've got room with the rear 2 runners. So I'm going to chop these front 2 apart and kind of reconfigure, because where I had the lower runner coming right through here, it was hitting the subframe whenever I was trying to take the header off of the engine and get it out. So it's probably just going to be one of those like very peculiar, hard to remove headers. So out and around, this was the gap I had a little bit too tight the last time. So by raising this, bending this pipe in, raising this pipe up, now this should be able to slide back that 1/2 inch. Gives me some more space. And ultimately I think I'm gonna like put a little bend in this and then put the collector in here kind of at an angle, try to give this one a little bit more length so this one can catch up. But that's what we got. Really, like, the clearance here and here is fine. It's the clearance right there that's killing me. And I can't really go up because once I have the intake manifold on there, there's not a whole lot of space up here for me to turn the tubes up with an OEM intake. So here from the top too, so you can see there's just tubes everywhere. That's the simple fact of it. There's too many tubes down here. Huge win. I can get the header off the engine without having to take the driver's side engine mount off. Now you'll have to take the passenger engine mount off because the header is going to be part of the engine mount most likely. But I am going to have to take this brace back off to be able to drop the header down. The flange is too big to fit between the transmission and the firewall tunnel, wherever it is. So pull this off, pull this out, weld this up, and then I will build the back section and then add in the little center port. Oh yeah, didn't have to take the engine mount off. We were just in an interesting situation. All right, sick. We can weld this up. So this is the tack together hybrid. 4-into-1, or I guess 4-into-2, soon to be into 1 manifold. And then I've got to add the 5th one, which is the middle. The middle, like I said, I don't think it matters. I don't want to have to, like, I don't want to block it off because I think I need to get the gas out of there. But I don't want it to just merge straight in and cause a bunch of turbulence. So we're rolling with it. Now I got to make all these welds happen, which means I'm probably going to have to take this apart a little bit. Like weld some of it, take it apart, weld some of it, take it apart, put it back together. Look at this beautiful, crazy looking header. I feel like I'm under the 4 rotor, albeit the 4 rotor, it's all out of stainless and doesn't have like interesting steps here. But get fired up for that. So I'm gonna pull this off, weld all this together, This piece right here is just slip fit on here. Okay, so it's just kind of holding everything together. I want to weld as much of it as I can reach before I take this off, just because this inevitably has to stay lined up. Once all that's finished welded, we'll put it back up here. I'll build the small pipe, and then I'll connect this to this. So this is actually a 2.5 inch hole right here. So this flares up to 3. I think I'm just going to cut this off, the little Venturi thing, because I want to connect back into the factory resonator right here. This resonator, you can literally see straight through it. So it shouldn't be too much of a restriction, if any. And it's 2.5 inch exhaust to then the bumper Melter 9000, which I think is 3. So, you know, could I have ran 3 inch from here to here? Probably. Is it going to be a huge restriction? I don't know. For some reason, I doubt it. So I think we'll be okay, considering that, you know, we make tons of power on just old school Bridgeport, you know, all that stuff through 2.5 inch exhaust anyways. So we'll see if that'll be a restriction. If not, we can always chop it up and make another one. So I think this is a good test to just get us to the dyno, see how much power we make, and then ultimately see like how much we can pull out of it moving forward. So it's a new day. It's a new Hawaiian shirt after a long night of welding. Check out this beauty. Look at that. It's like you're in a Need for Speed movie. Everything's just spinning all cinematic on the screen. So we've got 2 into 1, or I guess 3, 5 into 3, into 3 into 1 insanity here. The one thing that I did notice, or I say notice, is that I forgot to order O2 sensor bungs. So yeah, don't worry. We got to take the car back apart anyways to get it running, pull the engine out. Like, it doesn't have a clutch on it right now. So this has to come back off. So I'll mark it after I put this on. I'll order O2 sensor bungs. We'll put this thing in here. But look at this deal, guys. It looks so good. I'm so pumped. So definitely, this is one of those things where when it comes to cars, and I'm sure, you know, y'all were hoping, building a header, seeing all this cool, crazy tubes come together, and like all the science of the one guy that clicks that really sweet piece of stainless in on his turbo manifold, and he goes, nice. Like all those memes. Well, the cinematicness around here isn't exactly that crazy whenever I get into the groove building something. So I'm going to sit this down because it's heavy. And then we're going to talk about a nice important lesson that I learned really quick. So the thing that's nice is that at the beginning of the video, during the video, I'm not like, you know, I'm not a super crazy experienced fabricator guy. Like, I've built headers before. I've built exhausts before under cars. We did the exhaust on the 4-rotor, which was like, you know, fit and finish of a bunch of 3.5 inch pipe all the way back, and it tucks up real nicely in a resonator and all that. But that's pretty simple, honestly, when you're like transmission back on a car. The part that does get crazy though is this, and this was a great like learning lesson for me on, you know, measure twice, cut once. You're gonna mess stuff up, so order more material. I'm very happy I did not try to build this out of stainless, because if I'd have tried to build all of that out of stainless, I'd have just like wasted $700 in stainless, because this is a good bit of mild steel and trial and error, and I'm happy to have learned what I learned on this. Now, the next one, if this makes 4,000 horsepower, which it definitely won't, if we make like 210, then we could maybe, you know, try to like make more of these or make another one. I have no idea. But the header's done. I got to make the mid pipe and an engine mount. We're going to do that in the next video because I'm exhausted, literally exhausted. So I'm going to get this thing thrown on. We'll look at it all in the car. I'll show you everything, how it fits and stuff under the car. I really want to get y'all's comments though on like just what you think of this design. Are there any super exhaust flow scientists out there that can help me or tell me, you know, what's going to go wrong or what's going to work or whatever about this? Also, you know, mild steel as a header. This is some thicker wall stuff. It's not super thin and tinny. It's probably not going to last forever. But the intent of this build, guys, the NA version of the hybrid, is because you guys asked for it. So I wanted to take my hybrid engine and boost it. We were going to make this thing turbo. That was the goal. But in order to make something cool and relatable, there was a lot of guys in the comments that were like, I'd love to see what it does in NA. I'd love to see what it does in NA. So here's me trying it in A. I did the math over here just to show me how this is going to work, but I might as well show you guys the math. If you look at like an RX8 has 3 ports, right? 1, 2, the 3 exhaust ports. The area of each port is approximately 1.5 square inches. So there's 3 of them times 1.5, or I guess the middle one's actually a little bit smaller. But anyways, 4.1 square inches worth of exhaust area coming out of the engine, okay? Now, just looking at a peripheral port, like peripheral exhaust port 2 rotor, so just the 2 rotor ports, okay, just those. Each one is 2.5 square inches. So you add both of those together, and now we've got about, what, 4.9 or so square inches? I didn't do that math, but I can do that in my head. 2.4 point some change, so 4.9. Just the peripheral ports only is more area of exhaust flow than the side exit RX8 ports. So say you were to do this, I've seen other hybrids get built where they just blocked all the RX8 ports off and only ran the peripheral ones, which is fine. You can do that too. We're going to try to balance all of them because I worry that blocking off the outer ports is going to cause other issues, or I don't know. I just haven't seen a whole lot of people run all 5 and do a longer header and that. So that's what we're trying. Anyways, now let's look at the hybrid engine, right? So we're 4.1 for the RX8, 4.9 for just the peripherals. Let's add all that up together. We now have 8.9 square inches of exhaust coming out of the car. So if we're looking at the tubing as far as like what's going downstream and going out of the car, like the pipes, right? Each one is 1.75 inches, which is just shy of 2.4 inches. So now we've got 5 of those. So we're literally like, we have way more exhaust flow than we need. And really the only restriction is like way downstream, which is a 2.5-inch pipe. I know y'all are confused from all the numbers, but a 2.5-inch pipe's area is just under 4 inches squared. So like, if you think about all of that, we should have plenty of exhaust flow even running the smaller tubes. And, you know, honestly, I'm excited just to see what it does. I think this is really overkill. And like I mentioned before, if y'all want to see me drill holes in this stock manifold and test it, then drop it in the comments below. I kind of already hacked up my mid pipe, so I'm going to have to find another mid pipe to be able to put that back on. But I'm sure Ernie has one laying around we can try. Just to see, you know, because I do think there's like obviously a balance of, you know, your time, your money, your effort, my time, my money, my effort into making this thing, you know, the most optimal, right? Like I don't have Mazda R&D development money to try to prove that a hybrid is going to work. We can't spend millions of dollars and hours and hours of time doing this. So it's like, hey, I'll test it. We'll see how it shakes out. And then we're going to take it back apart and we're going to put turbo on it. So that's your science lesson for today. Let's drop, or I guess put up this thing in here. I tell you, I've hit my head on this lift more times than I can count. And that's only with one side engine mount, obviously not on. The other engine mount on the driver's side is still on the car. All right, guys, here's the hybrid header going nuts, going crazy. Look at all the tubes. So I still got to make this little bend here to here. No big deal. I wanted to run the stock resonator because it bolts right up. This is that only 2.5-inch restricted area is just through this muffler. I don't think that's going to be too big of a deal. Everything else looking super nice. So I'm thinking like upstream O2 sensor. You know, we might just put it here in the mid pipe, or I may put it right here, sticking vertical in just the header. So this piece right here, probably the most expensive piece of the whole deal besides the flange, is the merge collector from Vibrant. It's slip fit. So these last 2 pieces on the header are stainless. This is stainless. Ideally that shouldn't rust at that interface in there. This piece can slide off. I don't have it slid all the way on to build this little corner here because you need a little bit of length to slide this forward, but to get the back of this off. So that's how that's all working. But the header is effectively just to, you know, here, this piece comes off the end. But anyways, that's that. So with that, guys, this is going to be the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm pumped we have a header now. This is probably the hardest part of doing a hybrid build, is building a header or figuring out a header or just not being intimidated by trying something and hoping that it makes good power. Like we showed with the area stuff, literally, if you're going to do a hybrid, I think blocking everything off and just running the peripherals would probably honestly be worth it. I'm curious to see how much power this makes. I'm sure you guys are too, so definitely leave that number in the comments below. Through every video, just as we keep building on this car, maybe we'll keep increasing our odds of making more horsepower per dollar spent. So with that, thank you again for watching the videos. Thanks to all of my guys on Patreon for checking all of that out. I've got another video coming if you've been paying attention in the background. The Patreon stuff, there's a new thing on there called RadWorks. It's kind of the secret projects that are going on that are really ultimately going to happen by the end of the year, because to tell you the truth, we've got about 6 more months or so of being able to work on cars, do the hybrid stuff, play with the first gen, all of that before, well, I might have to go back and get a real job. So let's keep watching the videos, keep sharing the videos with your friends, and we're going to turn up the energy level around here, and we're going to crank out a bunch of cool projects. So go check out RadWorks on Patreon. Go check out the Patreon in general. There's a thing on Patreon called Rad Solutions. That's where you become a member of that. You can ask me questions if you have problems with your car. So we helped a guy in Germany get his FD RX7 running, which was super awesome. So those things, become a member for the month. Let me help you fix your car or advise or do whatever. And then you can cancel it. No hard feelings. I'm here to try to share my knowledge with you guys, and that's the most effective way to do it. But there are other, support options on Patreon as well. So definitely thank you to all of those guys, and thank you to all of you for watching the videos. So with that, keep it rad. We'll see you in the next one. All right. I probably shouldn't take you guys on this little adventure at the end of this video, because this is very much just the Patreon thing that they've been seeing. The car back there, I've got some rolls of carbon fiber. We're doing some stuff on the RX7, trying to go a little faster. Back here in the warehouse, for all the guys that watch every minute of every video, super appreciate it. Y'all remember, we got a plasma table. We'll look at what we've been doing on the plasma table. These aren't letter E's for my name. These are brackets, splitter brackets, arrow, and if you're on there, I just spent a week out at Gears and Gasoline, or I guess 4 days, building their RX8 engine. The R3's running, and we're doing some aero stuff on their R3, which I'm kind of using the yellow car to help out with. And I definitely just showed you the car and the side, so peace, guys. Thanks for watching.